I did not memorize this, so bear with me. All right, hit it. Let's hit it. Thanks for coming to hear about my passive project. It's a story about dreams coming true, resiliency, and retirement. My dream was to have a home in White Point where our family started to visit in 1994 when we lived in Alberta. I moved back in 97 and started to think about where I wanted to retire and not have a high power bill. The dream became a reality. I could afford the piece of property that I found while dreaming, so I went for it, not knowing what I was going to put on it. I heard about passive homes from someone and it piqued my interest. My brother-in-law sent me a link to Passive Design Solutions and this seemed like the way to go. Pick a stock plan and work from there. So what is a passive home? The name passive house comes from the German term passive Haus, I don't know how to say it, which describes a building that is predominantly heated by passive means, such as passive solar or internal heat gains, versus a conventional building which is typically heated by large active mechanical systems. The basic idea is to radically minimize heat loss and maximize free passive solar and internal heat gains. There are 5 principles of a passive house. 1, air tightness. 2, thermal bridge-free design. 3, ventilation with heat recovery. 4, passive house windows. And 5, thermal insulation. My backyard was south-facing, so I looked at stock plans from PDS and chose the North Glen, aka El Chico, before it was called the North Glen. Cheap to build compared to others' designs. Basically, it's a box. I wanted a 2-story just because I knew the view was going to be better up there. The location of the house and trees are very important since I'm taking advantage of the sun for heat. Before excavation started, I had PDS come and help with the finalizing of the exact spot for the house. This is a solar pathfinder that was used to show if any more trees needed to be removed. As I mentioned, there are 5 principles of a passive house. 1 is air tightness. Up to 50% of heat loss in standard homes comes from air leakage. Achieving this requires a strategy to develop at the design stage, with the final result dependent on the quality of workmanship. Achieving air tightness on site requires careful use of appropriate membranes, tapes, wet plastering, and/or vapor membranes to form a continuous airtight barrier. Here is an example where the tape had to be reapplied because it created a location where air leakage could have occurred. Another principle is having a thermal bridge-free design. Thermal bridging is the movement of heat across an object that is more conductive than the materials around it, like the studs and insulation in a wall. To stop this, in my house anyways, there are 2 walls and the studs are staggered. Another principle is ventilation with heat recovery. Because the house is extremely airtight, a heat recovery ventilation system is required to maintain the quality of indoor air by replacing it with fresh air. The heat exchanger exchanges heat between the fresh air coming in with the exhaust air, which reduces the heating requirements. Windows should be triple glazed to reduce heat loss. A benefit for triple glazing is that the surface temperature of the windows inside is the same as the surrounding walls, so there isn't a large temperature differential even on the coldest winter day. These are my kitchen windows, and they're from Coltac, as you can see too. The most important principle of a passive house is insulation. This should be applied continuously around the building envelope. This significantly reduces heat losses. Insulation levels in a passive house are 2 to 3 times higher than a standard home. My walls are 14.5 inches thick, which makes amazing windowsills, which the cats love. You're probably wondering about cost. Based on Passive Design Solutions 100 plus projects, the net increased cost of building to their design adds 0 to 10% to the total construction budget. I chose a builder who had 1 passive home under his belt in the area. So Daryl Wenzel Carpentry, from Riviera is my builder. Daryl and his team were an amazing example of teamwork, and the best example I witnessed is when they installed this very large window on the 2nd floor. I held my breath the whole time, for sure. I'm sure. Thanks to Daryl, Joey, Chris, Bobby, and Daryl's son Zach, which some of you may know here. So how did it go? Air tightness can be measured using the blower door test. And the criteria for a passive home is less than or equal to 0.6 air exchanges per hour under a vacuum. It measured an amazing 0.42, with air leakage occurring. Really all we could feel was at the patio door handles and the wood stove chimney, which Daryl had nothing to do with. There are many benefits of living in a passive home. Energy savings are obvious. By reducing the heat loss, the house can be heated using the heater the size of 2 hair dryers. It is easier to operate and maintain with fewer, simpler mechanical systems. An energy assessment was done after the house was finished, and this is the Energize of the house. It was estimated that my power consumption would be 41 gigajoules per year, compared to a new typical house, which would be 70. I'm happy to say that after 1 year, the actual was 25. Using the current cost of electricity, that's a savings of just over $2,000. I know it's gonna get better. Okay, other benefits are that they are resilient to storms and exceptionally quiet. When we had those crazy lightning storms, I would wait for the boom to hit them, and they didn't happen. Without power, the house temperature does not drop very quickly. And the house is warm, bright, quiet, and draft-free. I now have a place that my family can come visit for years to come. 2 days after the power was turned on at the house, I became a grandmother to Chloe. 2022 was quite the year, let me tell you. So I'm loving my Ocean Pearl, and I plan on being here as long as I am able, which I hope is a very long time. If you want to know more, because 6.67 minutes is a very short time, please drop by or get in touch with me. Thanks for listening.